Welcome back to Streaming Media West 2019. I'm Tim Siglin, contributing editor with Streaming Media Magazine and the founding executive director of the not-for-profit Help Me Stream. Today I've got with me Peyote Perryman. And Peyote, what's the name of your company?
Digital P Media.
And what does the P stand for?
Well, I'd like to say it stands for production or post or perfect, but it really just stands for Peyote. I was like my nickname as a freelancer. People would shorten Peyote down to P, and then they started saying, well, hey, what's up, Digital P? And so when I went to name the company, I'm like, I think I'll just go with Digital P.
All right, there we go. And people in the industry who knew you prior to that know what it means because that is your nickname. So what does Digital P do?
Digital P, the primary core of what we do is we help broadcast partners.
Okay.
So we've been producing shows for NBC Sports, ESPN, Discovery, Outdoor Channel, WFN for a long time. But in the last 4 or 5 years, we've started getting into streaming for our biggest partner, which is FLW, which is Fishing League Worldwide, or professional bass fishing.
Right.
And so for them, we've been producing a TV show for 10 years. We were trying to find a way to really extend the work that we were already doing. We were already out on the boats with cameras, bringing back lots of footage. If we could only figure out a way to stream that, then we could create more content for our partner at an incremental cost increase. And that was my pitch to them like 5 years ago. I'm like, we'll go from 12 hours of content a year to 134 hours of content in a year for a nominal increase in budget.
Interesting. So part of my background back in the early 2000s worked with a streaming idea around NASCAR and fishing. I got to go to the SHOT Show. I'd never been there. And there was a guy named Bill Dance who was on the board, who's a fishing guy from Tennessee.
A legend.
Yeah, where I live. So I would go around with him, and Rowan Martin and some of these other guys would be there. And so I actually lived on one of the bass fishing lakes, Tim's Ford, which is in southern Tennessee. Obviously, you've got a fairly wide area to cover if you're out on a boat trying to stream. So is it live streamed, or is it recorded and then brought back and made available later?
So we are able to live stream this show using bonded cellular.
muxing.
But we were looking at a lot of different options for that bonded cellular, knowing that was probably what's going to work for us out on a boat. And we really wanted something that wasn't going to put a backpack on a camera guy's shoulder, because the guy's going to be in the boat for 8 hours. It starts at 6:30 in the morning. They don't come in until 3:30 in the afternoon.
To do the weigh-ins and that.
Yeah, for the weigh-ins. And so we wanted to have a camera that could stream, have a built-in encoder. There's a couple of we want to be a small footprint. We want to be reliable. We want to be able to exist in any kind of weather condition, because once these guys take off on the water, they go 50 miles in any direction at 75 miles an hour to get to their fishing hole. And our camera guy is bouncing along with them, and then as soon as they stop to start making that first cast, he's got to be up and
ready to go. Yeah.
So,
and he needs to be out of their way, as you said, small footprint, that kind of
thing. Yeah, you're living on a 20-foot bass boat, and so the JVC kind of had like a couple of different options for that. They had a camera that had a really good encoder system at a low bit rate. That would operate on just a single Wi-Fi, like a little MiFi spot. And so for the first year, that's what we did. But then we were looking for something a little bit more robust, because what would happen is we'd be on a lake with good AT&T service, but not good Verizon service. And so we would send the camera guys with 2 cards, and we're like, okay, it's time to swap cards. So when we got the bonded cellular, we could now have both networks covered, and we could put in a high gain antenna, and we could move it away from the camera guy's head.
So does the high gain antenna actually attach to the boat, so that they are temporarily attached to the boat, so that you have a longer antenna by using a cable plus the high gain antenna itself?
No, we've talked about that, but these guys are on their own boat. So again, we have to be a completely portable package. So camera guy walks up, and the unit has a high gain antennas, and he can just put that right behind the driver's seat or right down on the floorboard. He turns it on. It's got a lithium-ion Anton Bauer style battery that it'll run all day. and then he can just hit go live in the camera, and then he never stops going live. At that point, we stream 5 cameras, 9 hours. The only time it stops is if there is some time they'll drive through a dead spot.
Sure.
And so then they'll have to.
Which I was thinking about the lake that I used to live on. There were a couple dead spots, when they'd be going out. So does it also then record locally so that if they do hit those dead spots, you've still at least got the footage from that?
Yeah, we still can. So we continue to make the TV show. Okay. And we're using, basically, if every camera is rolling, it's kind of like that's our ISO feed.
Right, sure.
So the camera is rolling to an SD card at 1080, 50 megabit, while it's also streaming out to us. And then we're bringing that through a service called Zixi.
Right.
They have a cloud encoding forward error correction.
Right, forward error correction.
And then that brings it to our server, where we then, we really have built it around a lot of new tech products in the TriCaster. Okay. They have what's called a Connect Pro, and the Connect Pro can take just about any feed and convert that into an NDI signal.
Right.
And then from there, we send it to the NewTek's 3-play systems, so that we've got replay capability, or just any kind of a feed that we need to feed to those. And then we've also got the TriCaster. We use the TC1.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. We started with an older one, and we found that it wasn't as robust on NDI, but the TC1 handles the NDI
and
input.
I think if I remember correctly, they won a Streaming Media Reader's Choice Award this morning for the TC1.
I would believe, yeah, we love the TC1.
Okay.
Nice. Our relationship with NewTek has been really solid. They've been good partners in trying to help us put together a system. Our decision was once we go, if we're gonna get this camera signal and convert it into an IP stream, we're gonna try to stay IP all the way throughout, and not convert it back to an SDI signal.
Right.
Unless we have to.
Now, clearly, what's coming off the boat though isn't at the high data rate NDI. So, as you said, you're bringing it in as a stream and then converting it into an NDI. At that point.
Right. The Zixi stream, we vary the portable bridge that we use, which is really a PepLink product that JVC uses. That can handle up to like 10 megabits.
Right.
So we actually have the camera guy connect his phone wirelessly to the hotspot.
Nice.
And we use Discord app as our way of communication.
Right.
So we have two-way comm with all the camera guys, with the drone operator, with the field producer.
Right.
But then we have the camera set at usually anywhere from 1.5 to 3 megabit.
Okay.
And so we can do, we usually try to keep it at a 720p stream. We found that signal is pretty solid. The picture is really good.
Right.
We've experimented with 1080.
The problem is, as you get toward the upper end of what it's capable of handling, if there's any variation on the data network itself, you start losing part of the signal.
And where we go test the limits of cell service in America.
Yep, trust me, I still live in those areas. I try to explain to my clients in Silicon Valley that 10 minutes outside my door, I'm not going to get cell service for 15 minutes because I'm going through the mountains, and they're like, is that really a thing in America still? I'm like, it is very much a thing for a lot. So one other quick question on that. So you talk about the package that you put on the boat. There's obviously a lot of telemetry involved on the boats themselves, depth finders, that kind of thing. Is there a future model that says you could tie that data in to send it through on the stream, so that if you wanted then to present to somebody who's watching it on a stream, sort of that data going along with it to help them on their fishing experience, that might come into play?
So that's an interesting question, and it actually it's one that it's at the heart of professional bass fishing, which is how much information is too much information. Right. Because these guys, if you think about a professional bass fisherman, he's competing based on his knowledge and his skill and his ability to read the conditions. And we're broadcasting it live. And so there's some fishermen that don't think that we should show the map location of where they are.
Because they don't want somebody else coming in.
Much less show the contour of the lake or the exact water temperature that they're looking for. So it's a struggle. We try to balance it. We try to say, here's what the viewer wants to see, and here's what we need to preserve.
And yet,
for
if you
your
think about,
advantage.
there was a presentation this morning where one of the guys from NASCAR was on there, and he talked about the fact that fans for 20 years have rented the radio headset to listen to the pit crew captain, the driver, the spotter. You know that every other racer out there has somebody probably listening in on the major competitors, and yet the racing continues. So I understand it's definitely a balance.
And it's funny because I try to explain that same kind of thing to these professional anglers, and I'll tell them, I'm like, look, you can tell me every single thing that you're doing. Give me your bait, give me everything. I'm going to go out on the water and I'm not going to have the same success because I don't compete at the same level you do.
Well, and this is what I'm wondering is if almost as an after the fact, help me if I'm a fisherman, not during the tournament, but to have that telemetry to understand where to go.
Right.
If I'm going as a amateur fisherman rather than a professional, a couple of weeks later or something.
So here, we make every live stream. We live stream across a couple of different platforms. We're on flwfishing.com, which is like the main home base of the feed, but we also multicast to YouTube and Facebook Live.
Okay.
The YouTube one is archived, and then so people can go back and watch.
Right.
And they can kind of really start to break down an area and listen and look at what a guy does. And we've seen is when another major tournament is getting ready to happen on that same body of water, all of a sudden people are watching that stream or watching we also put our TV show on there on YouTube as well.
Okay.
All of a sudden that TV show where we do, because the TV show comes out like 5 weeks later, it gives us more time to build some more of that detail, and we give a little bit more details about the style of baits and all that.
Right.
Those, there's always a spike in viewership on right about 2 weeks before another major tournament's happening.
That's going to happen at that.
Yeah, so we know that people in bass fishing world are using live streaming. They're using the internet. They embrace technology as a competitive advantage.
Sure, got it. Awesome. Well,
or at least they think of it as a competitive advantage.
Right. Well, Peyote, thank you very much for your time here, and we'll be right back with our next interview.